Okay, so picture this. It's the end of the month. You open your banking app, you look at your balance, and you think, where did it all go? Like, you're not buying designer clothes. You're not taking fancy vacations. You got your coffee at home most days. You didn't do anything crazy. But somehow, the money just evaporated. And the worst part? You have a budgeting app. You've had it for 6 months. You get the little notifications. You see the pie charts. You know, intellectually, that you spent $340 on dining out last month. But somehow knowing that didn't stop you from doing it again this month. Sound familiar? Yeah, that's not a you problem. That's a system problem. And today we're going to fix it with a method that's been quietly working for over 100 years, and it has nothing to do with your phone. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology of saving money. If you're someone who feels like you're doing everything right financially but still can't figure out where your money keeps disappearing to, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. It genuinely helps this channel more than you know, and I'm going to make sure this video earns it. Section 1. The problem with budgeting apps. Look, I'm not here to trash budgeting apps. Mint, YNAB, Copilot, these are genuinely well-designed tools. Smart people built them. But here's the thing. A 2023 survey from Debt.com found that roughly 86% of Americans who use a budget say they still regularly go over their spending limits. 86%. That's not a small rounding error. That's a near universal failure rate. So why aren't these apps working? Because they're solving the wrong problem. Most budgeting apps are built around tracking. They show you what you already did. They're basically a financial rearview mirror. You connect your bank account, transactions auto-populate, and at the end of the month you get a beautifully color-coded breakdown of your regrets. And you go, I spent $80 on Amazon impulse purchases again. And then you feel bad for about 45 seconds. And then you forget about it, and then next month you do it again. Here's what most people don't realize. Awareness alone does not change behavior. If it did, nobody would smoke, nobody would eat fast food, and everyone would exercise 5 days a week. We all know things. Knowing is not the bottleneck. The bottleneck is the emotional relationship you have with money in the moment you're spending it. And this is where a 117-year-old Japanese system absolutely demolishes every app on the market. Section 2. Enter Kakeibo. Kakeibo, pronounced kah-keh-boh, translates roughly to household financial ledger. It was invented in 1904 by a woman named Hani Motoko, who was, notably, Japan's first female journalist. She created it as a practical tool for Japanese housewives to manage household finances with intention and reflection. And over a century later, it's still widely used in Japan, which, by the way, has a household savings rate of around 11%, compared to the U.S. rate, which has dipped as low as 5% in recent years, according to the Federal Reserve. Now, I want to be careful here. Japan's savings culture is complex. There are demographic and economic factors at play. But the practice of Kakeibo reflects a mindset about money that most Western budgeting tools completely ignore. And that mindset, when applied consistently, has been shown to increase savings by 35% on average, according to studies reviewed in Fumiko Chiba's modern adaptation of the method. 35%. Let's make that concrete. If you currently save $400 a month, a 35% improvement gets you to $540 a month. Over 5 years, assuming a conservative 7% annual return in an index fund, that's roughly $38,000 versus $28,000. You just created $10,000 out of thin air, not by earning more, not by cutting out every small pleasure, but by changing how you think about money before you spend it. So what actually is it? How does it work? Section 3. The 4 pillars of Kakeibo. Kakeibo is built on 4 core questions that you ask yourself at the beginning of every month and then revisit at the end. These sound almost embarrassingly simple, but I need you to stay with me because the simplicity is the entire point. Question 1. How much money do I have available? Not your gross salary, not some theoretical number. How much actually hits your account this month, after taxes, after any automatic deductions? You need a real, honest starting number. This is your financial reality check. Most people are genuinely fuzzy on this. They say, I make $75,000 a year, and they feel secure in that. But after federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, Medicare, that $75K is closer to $54,000 take home, depending on your state. That's $4,500 a month. When you write that number down with your hand, on paper, it hits differently than seeing it auto-populate in an app. And that brings me to the most important structural feature of Kakeibo. It is entirely analog, no apps, no spreadsheets, a physical notebook, and a pen. And I know some of you just rolled your eyes. Stick with me. Question 2. How much would I like to save? Notice the wording, not how much should I save or how much do I have to save. Would like to. This is intentional. Kakeibo treats saving as a goal you're working toward with positive intention, not a punishment you're enduring. You write down your savings goal first, at the top of the month, before you budget a single dollar of spending. This reversal, saving first, spending what's left, is the single most important financial habit you can build, and behavioral economists call it pre-commitment. You are removing the decision from your future self, who will be tired and tempted, and making it now, when you're calm and rational. Question 3. How much am I spending? Here's where Kakeibo diverges most sharply from budgeting apps. Rather than 57 microscopic spending categories, Kakeibo uses just 4 broad buckets. Needs rent, groceries, utilities, transportation. Wants dining out, entertainment, subscriptions, hobbies, culture books, museums, concerts, education, anything that enriches you. And unexpected car repairs, medical bills, gifts, anything that surprised you. That's it. 4 buckets. And critically, you write each transaction down manually, by hand, ideally the same day you make it. This is not about obsessive record keeping. It's about friction. When you have to physically pick up a pen and write down that you spent $14 on a cocktail you didn't really need, something happens in your brain. There's a moment of consciousness around that transaction that swiping a credit card on an auto-tracked app never produces. You feel the money leaving. You remember it. And over time, that feeling starts to happen before you spend, which is exactly where you need it. Question 4. How can I improve? This is the end-of-month reflection question, and it's the one most saving systems skip entirely. You sit down with your notebook, you look at the month, and you ask yourself honestly, what worked? What didn't? Were there moments when I spent out of emotion, stress, boredom, loneliness, celebration? Were there categories that surprised me? And importantly, what will I do differently next month? This isn't about guilt. This is about building financial self-awareness that compounds over time. The same way a good athlete watches game film not to beat themselves up, but to get better. Section 4. The psychology behind why this works. This is where it gets really interesting, and I think this is the part that will actually change how you think about money. There's a concept in behavioral psychology called the pain of paying. Research by Drazen Prelec and Duncan Simister at MIT showed that people spend significantly more freely when they use credit cards versus cash, because the psychological pain of parting with physical money is real and immediate, while credit card spending feels abstract and painless. Digital banking has taken this even further. When your transactions are automatically tracked and categorized, you're even further removed from the sensation of spending. Kakeibo is essentially a system that reintroduces that pain of paying in a healthy, productive way, not to make you miserable, but to make you conscious. Every time you write a transaction down, you experience a micro moment of financial mindfulness. And over 30 days, those micro moments reshape your habits. There's also something powerful about the physical act of writing. A 2014 study from Princeton and UCLA, "The Pen is Mightier Than the Keyboard" study, found that people who take notes by hand process and retain information more deeply than those who type. When you write your financial goals in your own handwriting, they become more real to you. They move from abstract intention to concrete commitment. Now you might be thinking, okay, Nick, but I'm not going to write down every single Starbucks purchase. That's insane. I have a life. And look, that's a fair objection. Here's how I'd reframe it. You don't need to log every single purchase in real time. Many people practicing Kakeibo do a nightly 5-minute review. They sit down before bed, recall the day's spending, write it in their notebook. It becomes a ritual, not a burden. And rituals are what separate people who talk about saving money from people who actually do it. Section 5. The 4 Kakeibo questions for your money personality. Here's something the original Kakeibo also encourages that I find genuinely fascinating: understanding why you spend the way you do. And there are patterns. Broadly speaking, most people fall into spending archetypes. Some people are comfort spenders. They buy things when they're stressed or anxious because spending produces a short-term dopamine hit that mimics relief. They don't particularly want more stuff. They want to feel better. If this is you, Kakeibo's reflection section is especially powerful because you'll start to notice correlations between hard weeks and blown budgets. Some people are social spenders. Their overspending happens in the context of other people, rounds of drinks, group dinners, vacations they can't afford because they didn't want to feel left out. The solution here isn't isolation, it's planning ahead. Kakeibo's forward-looking goal setting at the start of each month helps social spenders pre-negotiate with themselves. I've got 2 big social events this month. I'm allocating $200 for them. That's my number. Some people are convenience spenders, not emotional, just busy. They order food delivery because cooking takes time. They buy things on Amazon because it's frictionless. For these folks, the manual logging of Kakeibo introduces just enough friction to prompt the question: do I actually want this? Or is it just easy? Identifying your type doesn't fix the problem, but it gives you something specific to address, which is infinitely more useful than a pie chart that just shows you the symptom. Section 6. How to actually set up your Kakeibo. Alright, let's get practical. Here's exactly how to start today. Get a notebook. Doesn't have to be fancy, a Moleskine, a composition notebook, whatever. Some people like a dedicated Kakeibo journal, which you can find on Amazon for about $15, and those come with pre-formatted sections. Either works. On the first page of each month, write 4 things. Your total expected income for the month. Your savings goal, a specific number, not a percentage. A dollar figure. Your estimated fixed expenses. Rent, car payment, insurance, subscriptions, the non-negotiables. And then your remaining discretionary budget, which is simply income minus savings goal minus fixed expenses. That last number is what you actually have to spend on everything else. Write it big, circle it, make it real. Then, divide a fresh page into your 4 columns. Needs, wants, culture, unexpected. Every day or every evening, log your transactions. Keep it brief, just the amount, what it was, and which category. 5 minutes, max. At the end of each week, total up each column. You're looking for patterns, not perfection. At the end of the month, ask yourself the 4 questions again. How much did I have? How much did I save actually? Not theoretically. What did I spend? And how can I do better? Then transfer your savings goal amount, whatever you committed to, into a separate savings account before you do anything else for the next month. That's it. That's the whole system. Section 7. What about using both? Now you might be thinking, can I use Kakeibo alongside my budgeting app? And honestly, yes, but with a caveat. The app should be a secondary reference, not your primary engagement with money. The danger is that the convenience of the app lets you off the hook from the reflective practice. If you find yourself just relying on the app and using the notebook as decoration, you've lost the core benefit. Think of it this way. The app is the speedometer. Kakeibo is learning to actually drive. You need both, but you can't drive by staring at the speedometer. Section 8. The long game. Here's what I really want you to understand before we wrap up. Personal finance content online is obsessed with tactics. Side hustles, index funds, the latte factor, Roth IRAs versus traditional. And all of that stuff matters, eventually. But tactics without behavioral change are useless. You can know every optimal tax strategy in existence and still be broke at 45 because you never address the emotional and psychological relationship you have with spending. Kakeibo is not a hack. It's not a shortcut. It's a discipline, one that, practiced consistently over 6 to 12 months, fundamentally rewires how you think about money. People who stick with it don't just save more. They report feeling less anxious about money. Not because they have more of it necessarily, but because they have more clarity and control. Let me give you a real example. Imagine someone, let's call her Sarah, making $68,000 a year, take home around $4,400 a month. She's been using a budgeting app for 2 years. She saves maybe $200 a month, inconsistently. She starts Kakeibo. Month 1, she discovers she's spending $310 a month on food delivery. She thought it was around $150. Month 2, she cuts that to $180. Month 3, $120. She also realizes she has 4 streaming subscriptions. She uses maybe once a month, each $52 gone. She starts logging every transaction and finds she impulse spends most heavily on Sunday evenings, when she's anxious about the week ahead. By month 4, Sarah is saving $650 a month, not because her income went up, not because she eliminated every pleasure, but because she finally saw her money clearly and made intentional choices about it. Over 10 years, that difference, $450 extra per month invested at 7%, is worth over $78,000 from a notebook that costs $12. That's the power of a system that addresses not just your math, but your psychology. Look, we live in a world that is specifically engineered to separate you from your money as frictionlessly as possible. One-click checkout, auto renewals, buy now, pay later. Every system you encounter in daily life is designed to make spending feel effortless and painless. Kakeibo is an act of resistance against all of that. It's you, slowing down, paying attention, and deciding with intention what your money is actually for. It's not glamorous. It won't go viral, but it works. And 100 years of Japanese households using it is a pretty solid track record. So here's your homework. Get a notebook this week. Spend 15 minutes setting up your first monthly page. Write down what you have, what you want to save, and your 4 spending buckets. And at the end of this month, come back and do the reflection honestly. That's it. That's step 1. Take it. If this video gave you something useful, hit the thumbs up button. It genuinely helps more people find this content. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we cover this kind of evidence-based psychology, first financial content every single week. And if you want to go deeper on the behavioral side of personal finance, I'll link a video right here that I think you'll find really valuable. I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe button animation.